Dawn breaks over the savannah, and a giant stirs. A ton of muscle and horn and armored hide, moving through the gray light, riding its shoulders, small enough to close inside your fist. A single bird. It will spend its whole life up here, feeding, sleeping, courting, raising its young on the backs of the largest animals on the continent. But this is no free ride. Between the smallest and the largest, a bargain is being struck, and it is written in blood. This is the oxpecker. Barely 40 grams of olive brown feather, a red eye ringed with bare skin, and a bill built like a pair of shears. There are only two of its kind in all the world, the red-billed and the yellow-billed, and both are found nowhere but here, in the grass and thorn scrub of sub-Saharan Africa. It is no larger than a common starling, and yet its entire existence is staked on the bodies of beasts 1,000 times its size. Everything about it is shaped for the ride. Its tail is stiffened into a rigid prop. A third leg it braces against the flank of its host, the way a woodpecker leans on a trunk. Its claws are curved and sharp, gripping thick hide, yet it can soften that grip at will, so as not to wound the animal beneath it. Even its nostrils can seal shut, closing against the dust thrown up by a running herd. This is a bird that has surrendered the ordinary life of birds. It does not forage in the trees. It forages on the living. To the oxpecker, a buffalo's back is a landscape, a terrain of ridge and fold, of hair and hide, with hidden valleys around the ears and eyes and skin, where the parasites gather. And it hunts them with a technique all its own. Running its half-open bill through the fur, it snaps the mandibles rapidly open and shut, a motion called scissoring, combing the coat blade by blade, flushing out whatever feeds on the flesh below. Ticks, lice, fleas, the maggots of botflies. A single oxpecker can swallow more than 100 blood-swollen ticks in a day, or as many as 12,000 of their larvae. It rides the necks of giraffes, the flanks of zebra, the broad backs of buffalo, deigning to land on nothing smaller than an impala. To each of them, the parasites are a plague of tiny thieves, everyone drinking their blood. To the bird, they are a moving feast that never runs dry. But of all the giants it rides, one carries the oxpecker for a reason far greater than grooming. Dusk on the savannah. A black rhino moves alone through the thickening light, cropping the low scrub. It is a creature of immense power, a horn like a curved blade, a hide like plate armor, more than a ton of ancient fury. And it is nearly blind. A rhino can barely make out a shape beyond 30 paces. It lives in a world of scent and sound, and downwind, where its nose is useless, it carries a blind spot a hunter can slip straight through. Approach from the right side, into the wind, and you can walk within 5 meters of a wild rhino before it knows you are there. Tonight, something is moving in that blind spot. A shape, low in the grass, drifting closer on the still air. The rhino grazes on, unaware. 4 meters. It does not lift its head. And in a world without the birds, this is how the story so often ends. A predator, or a poacher, closing the final distance on an animal that never sees death coming. In careful trials, rhinos left to their own senses caught a human stalking them only 23 times in 100. But this rhino is not alone. Clinging to its shoulder, a pair of oxpeckers has been feeding, and their eyes are keen where the giants are not. One of them freezes. Then comes the sound, a harsh, rasping hiss, bursting into the dusk as the birds explode upward in alarm. It is a cry the rhino has known since birth, and it means one thing: danger. In an instant, the great head comes up. The animal wheels, turning to face directly downwind, into its own blindest quarter. Ears swiveling, nostrils flared, every sense trained on the one direction it cannot otherwise guard. The shape in the grass has been found, and, discovered, it melts away. With these birds aboard, the rhino misses almost nothing. Where they ride, it senses an intruder every single time, and from 4 times the distance, catching the threat while it is still far off in the dark. The more birds on its back, the farther that warning reaches. Little wonder that in Swahili, the oxpecker earned a name that has clung to it for generations. Askari wa kifaru, the rhino's guard. And here it would be easy to call this friendship. Easy, and only half true, because the bargain the oxpecker strikes is not charity. Look closer at what it eats. It does not simply cull the parasites. It favors the ticks already gorged and swollen, round with the host's own blood. The blood is the prize, and when ticks run short, the bird turns to the animal itself. On a rhino's flank, there are often raw, weeping sores, opened by a burrowing worm, and to these the oxpecker returns again and again, not to heal them, but to feed, worrying the wound, drinking, keeping it open long after it should have closed. When researchers watched cattle stripped of their birds, the animals carried no more ticks than before, and their wounds healed faster once the oxpeckers were gone. So the ledger runs both ways. Guardian and parasite, cleaner and drinker of blood, all in the same small body. Scientists have a careful phrase for a partnership like this: facultative mutualism. Mostly helpful, sometimes harmful, always, underneath, a matter of accounts. And it is accounts, in the end, that bind the two together. For a wild giant, every tick is a slow drain, and every drop of blood is energy. And energy is the only currency that matters out here. It is what buys the strength to walk farther for water, to fight off a rival, to survive the lean, dry months and still be strong enough, when the rains return, to win the right to breed. The oxpecker's grooming, imperfect as it is, and above all its ceaseless watching, tip that balance a fraction toward survival. Not out of kindness. The bird is simply feeding, but in feeding, it pays its passage, and the giant, in turn, tolerates the thief on its back, and the small wounds, for the sake of the eyes that never sleep. For the oxpecker surrenders nothing to the ground. It lives its entire life on the move. It courts here, on the swaying back of its host. A pair circling one another, with wings spread and shivering, beaks open in display. It mates here, and when the rains bring the ticks and the flush of biting flies that fuel the effort of breeding, it plucks the hair straight from the animal it rides, carries it to a hollow in a tree, and lines a nest, sealed at the seams with the giant's own dung. It does not raise its brood alone. Grown chicks from seasons past return as helpers, feeding the new young, carrying off the shells and the droppings, so that no scent betrays the nest. And should its mate die, an oxpecker may never take another, living out its days a widow among the herds. At night, many simply stay aboard, roosting on the warm flank of the sleeping giant, a whole life measured out on the body of another. But the oldest bargains are the most fragile. Both partners are fading now. The black rhino is hunted to the very edge of extinction, its horn worth a fortune to men who slip in from downwind. The exact blind spot the little sentinel was born to guard. And the oxpecker is vanishing too, poisoned by the chemical dips that ranchers use to kill the ticks on their cattle. The same ticks the bird has lived on for uncounted generations. Kill the parasite, and you kill the guardian with it. Two declines, wound around each other, just as the two lives always were. And perhaps that is the truest thing the oxpecker has to teach. Out here, nothing survives alone. The giant and the tiny rider are bound in a pact that is neither pure friendship nor simple theft, but something older and more honest than either. Plain need. The savanna keeps its accounts in blood, and every creature upon it, from the least to the greatest, is paying something, always, for the right to see another dawn. The giant walks on into the dark, and on its shoulders, small enough to vanish against the fading sky, the smallest of riders rides with it, feeding and watching, keeping its silent guard over the night.